city of angels with stained glass hearts, where the nice guys lose and all the bad girls fall apart. Sunset Boulevard was shining full of stars, but none as bright as you in California. Here in California.
Starting.
Hey guys, welcome to the Hollywood Dreams podcast. And this is your host Santi, along with my fellow host Dave. Hey Dave, how are you?
Santi, how are you? What's up?
I'm doing great. I'm very happy to be doing one of these again. It's been quite a while, a few months for sure. So yeah, I'm really happy to be doing one of our episodes again. And what a great one to resume our shenanigans.
To get it kicked back in.
Yeah, we got a tale of two Daves today.
Yeah.
So we got David Alvin from the great New York band White Trash. Hey Dave, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. What's up?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. You hanging? Are you? So you're in New York? You're still living in New York?
Yeah. Yes, I'm New York. I lived in California for a while, Florida for a while, but I always come back to New York.
Gotta go
Nice.
back home.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and you are you still making music with White Trash or?
Yeah, I mean, White Trash has a few things going on. We're gonna in about a month, we're putting out a CD that's
Thanks.
these are not new recordings. They're outtakes and demos and stuff like that. So we're putting that out next month. And then we started putting together a new album, new material. So that's going on in the background. So there's a few things going on in the background, and haven't been playing out much. Last thing we really did was Monsters of Rock Cruise a couple of years ago.
Okay.
We did Queens Rock Fest, a big festival in Queens, our hometown. And but that was all COVID. COVID came in and kind of set everything back a little bit. But we're ramping it up. We're trying to get it moving again.
Nice, that's awesome, man. And
cool.
I'm pretty sure people are eager to listen to both the demos and the new stuff because there's definitely not enough White Trash out there. Well, it depends on how you look at it, right?
Musically, there isn't.
Right. Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed your music very much since it always seemed very different to a lot of stuff that was out there. I mean, I'm young, so I'm only 31,
Right.
so I was not around when you guys were originally playing, but
I, however, was. In fact, I saw you guys. I don't know how many times you played Cleveland, but I did see you guys once at Flashes in Cleveland.
Okay, I remember that place.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. That was a great show. And
Thank you.
And I even met you back then. I wish I had pictures. I don't have any pictures.
I know nobody
maybe
has
cell
pictures.
phones were around.
Luckily, people don't have pictures back then for certain things, but now
you
everybody's
guys
got
were very
phones.
cool. Yep, you guys were very cool, and I did have my debut album signed. I did have that, but that's that could be anywhere at this point.
I gotcha.
But the tape was autographed by everybody.
Yes,
Everybody I could find. I think you guys had like 20 members at that time.
Probably.
But man, what a great show. What a great show
Thank
from
you.
what I remember. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
And I think
Cleveland's
you guys
great
had a
place.
couple opening bands that were local guys, I believe.
Yeah, usually because we were doing mainly clubs, headlining club tours. We didn't do a lot of opening for people.
Mhm.
So usually you roll into town and however promoters do it. Nowadays everybody pays to open up for the national act or whatever. So I don't know if they did that stuff back then, but
Flashes
a
was
lot of
pretty
good
good with
bands.
like setting people up, like bringing in local bands and putting them with people. So
Yeah.
I think that particular club was very good at that. I'm working on a documentary called Cleveland Rocks about the local music scene, and
cool.
that's a big part of it. How the clubs did work with all the local bands and hook them up with the national acts. So I just can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember who we played with, but that was, how the scene worked here too. That's how like we started out. You prove yourself as a band to the club that you can get some people in the club, and then they start putting you with national acts. We start out playing with Mike Monroe from Hanoi Rocks, and who else we played with? Like Bang Tango was big at the time, and I can't even remember. There was so many bands back then. So we used to play in New York a lot. The Cat Club, Tommy Gunn was the promoter, and Nicky Camp, and Lemoore, Brooklyn, Lemoore, Queens. So we got in good with those clubs, and whenever they had a national act, we usually got that coveted spot of like opening for the national act. And the way they did the scene then was much smarter because it was a scene. It wasn't about conning musicians into paying to play and all that stuff. It's totally changed now. I mean, if you're lucky enough to headline, you get paid, but it's like the other bands are paying your, your guarantee. It's kind of fucked up, really. But that's the good old days. It was about music and a scene. The scene is what's lacking now more than anything.
Yeah, very much so, and that's real sad because even now you still see a lot of talented bands that come out and they just don't they don't have that that ground where they kind of built it all up. Playing in New York though, did you guys play CBGBs?
Yeah, we played CBGBs. We played the Limelight. We played everywhere that was cool back then. All these places are gone now. In New York, there's really not a music scene in New York. There are bigger venues, where obviously Madison Square Garden, but I mean, there's things like Highland and stuff like that. But it's a totally different New York. It's still the greatest city in the world, but it's much different. And I'm sure like younger kids are like, who wants to see a bunch of old guys, jumping around on stage. So I'm sure there's great clubs and stuff. It just I have no idea like what's going on with that now.
I gotcha.
Right, and you mentioned Mike Monroe, and he has that song about the Battle of the Lower East Side, where he tells exactly that, right? Like the New York that he knew is long gone, and now it's all squeaky clean, and,
and it's very clean.
No punks anymore.
It's I mean, it's still a great city, but it's. I miss the old New York as well. I mean, there's all these places. I used to go in the city. There were places I'd hit up. And then over the years, you're like, oh, that place closed. And then I just remember the last place I used to really love to go was a bar called Holiday, which was like this rundown bar on St. Mark's Place. And it was there forever. This guy who ran the bar, he was like an old boxer. And he just drank. It was like, if you ever saw the movie Barfly, it was just, it was, but it was the place you went before you went wherever you were going. Cause the drinks were dirt cheap and they had a great jukebox. And like, this guy was drunk. It was a great scene. And I remember I went by one day, cause anytime I was in the city, I would stop by there, have a beer. And I went by and, I saw the gate was closed. And then I saw there were like flowers on the ground. And I was like, oh no, the guy died. And that's what happened. He died. And so someone bought it and it's still open, but it's not Holiday. It's not the same thing at all, Yeah,
it was a good pregame place, huh?
Oh yeah, it was the best. We went in there once. My friend was playing up the block at the Continental, which was another good club. And we're getting boozed up, so we don't have to pay so much money in the other club. And we're in there and the guy was just inebriated, like just like stumbling around in the bar, and some guy comes in and he's like, and he kept giving us beers, and we were like, when is this guy gonna ask us to pay for the beers? He never did, so we probably drink a 12-pack for free, but so the guy comes in, he's like, can I have a gin and tonic? And he just kind of looks at him like, and he just hands him a beer, like never doesn't break. And the guy was like, okay. He just drank the beer. So all the characters, all the crazy people, that was such a big part of the city for so long. That's really gone. Like all the crazy people have been chased out of the city. I mean, there's different kinds of crazy people, like crazy
Yeah,
people,
yeah. Yeah,
billionaires,
it's a
crazy,
totally different time. And
but
and
they're
back
not
then,
fun.
yeah, about to say back then the crazy seemed a little fun, but now it's
Yeah.
like the crazy's just flat out fucking scary. And
Yeah,
it's
well, it's
it's
dangerous.
just
Like,
not cool.
like, I mean, one time walking down, I think it was 4th Street, we're walking down and these skinhead dudes are like just pouncing on a car, like whatever the fuck they were doing. And we're walking by and all of a sudden they come up to us like, hey, you guys are on the wrong side of the street. And this whole thing. And we're like, yo, like trying to be peace and love, peace and love.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, dude, we're not trying to fuck with you. And the guy's like, all right. And he puts out his hand to shake my hand. And I go to shake his hand and he just broke my nose in like one shot, just like blood everywhere.
Wow.
And we just took off running because there was like 20 of them and like 4 of us. And they're throwing bottles after us and all this shit, So that would be like, yeah, we'll never go to the city, right? But I mean, I was in the city the next day. Bandage because, it was just par for the course. Like there was so much great stuff going on. Occasionally maybe you get your ass kicked or thrown out of somewhere or whatever. But that was just, like I said, it was just par for the course. That's the New York. I loved it.
You have a few scars and you move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember the first, not the first, but the last time I was in New York a few years ago. I got off the bus. I landed at Newark and I took the bus to Manhattan, and I got off the bus and the first with my fucking suitcase. I was like the fucking girl in the Poison video with a suitcase.
Right.
You were the fallen angel.
Yeah, I was a fallen angel. I got off the bus with that suitcase full of dreams, and this guy just came straight up to me and said, "Hey, man, my car broke down. I need your phone to call whatever." And then he had the weirdest look in his face. Yeah, I mean, sure, buddy. Yeah, I'm gonna give you my phone. Yeah, and he started just, hey, fuck you, you fucking cunt. And
yeah, you just keep walking. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Hey, I'm about to die. Sorry, can't help
Peace,
you,
buddy.
Can't help you.
Yeah, I was in New York. We went. It was me and my ex-wife. We went to New York the week before September 11th. Literally the week before.
Oh, wow.
The Tuesday before that happened, we went to CBGB's for a video.
So it was you. So it was you.
Yeah,
busted. Yeah.
But we went. It was cool that I got to experience it before all that went down.
Yeah.
We spent a week there, and it was great. But going to CBGB's for the video shoot, the band was Bouncing Souls. Were shooting their video there, and man, that was talk about a history. That's why I mentioned you guys playing at CB's. Just being able to go in there, and Brian, the bassist for the Bouncing Souls, he found out we were from Cleveland, and he's like, "Oh man, you guys came all the way from Cleveland for this?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude," and he took us in, gave us a little tour of the place. We met Hilly Crystal, which was really cool,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was a great experience, and my experience in New York was absolutely amazing. The record store there, the 24 hours was it Tower Records? I don't remember.
Tower was a great place. Other Music was a great record store. That's what I mean. Those stores are all gone. It's all gone. Kim's Video is still there, but I don't think Kim's Music is. That was another really cool place.
Well, this place
there were a lot of good. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say this place was like 24 hours and we were sitting in a hotel and it's like, after midnight and I'm like, man, I want to go buy an album. And we went over to the store and.
Well, that's it. It was 24 hours, I mean, I mean, in those days I went out every night, like it was a schedule. You knew which club to be at every night. And that's how you networked and how you got into the scene. Right. My friend, Anthony, used to be in a band that was really big in New York called the Throbs, and then
Love the props. Yeah.
He's a drummer, and then he was actually in if you ever saw Married with Children, he was in that band the Gutter Cats where she's doing a music video. He's the drummer. He's like, you got the gig. Like he's got the line, because I guess the other guys put too high to talk or whatever. But he's a little older than me, so he took me around the city and kind of showed me like how it's done. You know what I mean? So I learned under his tutelage how to like. And we, were out every night. We knew like the bouncers, security, you just go straight to the front of the line, like get in, it was a great scene back then. But yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm sure there's something like that going on now with different music and different people, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's
Trash and Vaudeville.
Either way, it's not the same.
Right?
It's
not
vaudeville.
Yeah.
That one's still open, I think. It was the last time I went there.
I think he had to move. I can't remember what happened. I think he had to move because St. Mark's Place, it's like a mini mall now, So everything like moved as far as it could. Then it started to go to Brooklyn and Williamsburg and Greenpoint and Bushwick, and they just keep pushing it out, So Manhattan is like elite, expensive. But back then, I mean, Manhattan was always elite and expensive, but there was like the thing about New York in those days is there was like areas of Manhattan that were really like undeveloped, like wild areas. That's where like dangerous things happened, Now all these areas like the meatpacking district are like, beautiful buildings but all the empty. So like in art, right? Like they always talk about negative space, like in a painting, like you don't want to just fill up the camp, but that's what Manhattan kind of became now. There's no like empty space. There's no place to go. There's no dangerous place really. I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's not the same thing. I mean, there used to be just burned out buildings and cars flipped over and
Escape from
shit
New York.
like that. It's like, you watched like Escape from New York or so. I mean, not even that, the Warriors or whatever, you see like old New York or old, like, exploitation movies that show Times Square the way it really was when it was totally depraved and dangerous, like very dangerous. But that's the thing, like to be in the city wasn't so much about money. It was like about earning your stripes, right? It was like a rite of passage. You had to be able to prove that you could survive in the city, And I remember back then, there was always like dudes moving to New York and they'd come out and they'd have like, a $2,000 Jackson guitar and like, all the clothes and, they'd come and they play and, back then you'd be like, I don't care how much fucking money you have, bro. Like you can't play. Like, you know what I mean? And it seems like that's lost now. People can kind of buy their way through YouTube and, it's all about money, so there's got to be room in the world for art and danger and evil.
Yeah, it's not like the Ramones carrying guitars in shopping bags or anything anymore.
Right. Back then, like the after place to go was the Scrap Bar. And any night you go in there, you see Joey Ramone, Richie Stotts from the Plasmatics, Lemmy. You see Lemmy in there. I met Steve Stevens over there from, Billy Idol.
Yeah.
I met Axl Rose and Chris Holmes at the Cat Club. It was like Disneyland for rockers, It was like, hey, it's Mickey Mouse,
Right.
And now, how did it feel when you became part of those rockers? When you guys got signed to Elektra, that had to be exciting. First of all, Motley's on that label. All the bands that were on that label. I think Faster Pussycat was on that label for a while.
Well, Metallica.
That had to be pretty cool.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it was the best. A lot of even guys from my band. A lot of people complain about all that stuff, but it was amazing. I the business works how it works. You get a window of time. And my thing was like, I am going to smash and grab and take everything I possibly can in this window that's open to me, I mean, I think we could have done more and been more successful had we stuck together as a band. But when they open up that gate, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, all right, I'm officially insane. I'm officially going insane. I'm taking everything. I want every girl, every drink. Give me everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, live it up.
And that's
man.
what happens with MTV and a major label like that. You really do get offered pretty much everything. So
Yeah,
You know, there's plenty of bad things about those labels. You know, everybody can tell you stories how they weren't promoted properly, or and it's all true. You know, all the people who work at the record labels are basically scumbags. But there's, you know, there's good people. We worked with good people at the labels, and I'm, you know, forever thankful for that
yeah.
experience. It was a
Well, I
beautiful
mean,
thing.
it seems to be the case that with a lot of these more funky metal bands, they didn't know how to promote them. They promoted them as hair metal bands, but when it was something different, really.
Yeah. So that's always
Yeah.
a weird thing when I look back on it, because it's like it somehow made sense at the time, but it really doesn't when you look at it. So we started out really as a rock, you know, poser band, just like everybody else, you know.
Yeah.
Um, you know, everybody in the band, you know, Ethan, the guitar player who passed away, um, he was always into like progressive music, but he always bring in like weird music like you never heard before. Like, here, listen to this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so we were always trying to incorporate like other things into what we were doing. And then, you know, like I got into Prince and like blues guys like Albert King, you know, and they used horns, and we started talking about horns. Like we did all kinds of different things. We had like a trio of girls. We had backup singers for a while. We you know, we did all kinds of things like we throw out money at the show. We give out hamburgers and pizza and smash TVs like the Plasmatics, you know. So we kind of always had this punk rock sensibility. We were like total posers, you know, with the hair and everything, and the way we dressed. And then but those guys were like serious musicians. They weren't like a joke at all. Like, I mean, there's,
Yeah.
you know, they're all like, I'm lucky that everybody I played with, I mean, they're really like high level musicians. And so we could really play anything if we, you know, if we took time and you know, studied it. And so we started bringing in, like I said, funk stuff, you know, from Prince and Curtis Mayfield and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And you know, the rhythm section we had Aaron and Mike, they were really into the Chili Peppers, so you can hear that, you know, the slapping on the bass and the tight rhythms and stuff like. And we in our high school, you know, in band class, Aaron was in band class, and he just asked the horn players in the band class, like, "Hey, you want to come and like play with us at a show?" And they were like, "Yeah," you know. So we just pulled these guys with like no real experience into the band, and as soon as we started doing that, it definitely made us stand out. Like, because we were just like
Yeah.
we shooting shit all over the place. We were insane. But then once that, you know, we could all feel like this is it. This is the way to go. Like, you know, because this adds a whole other, you know, part to it. And you know, bands like Aerosmith have used horns. Like, you know, horns have been in rock music forever.
Yeah, but they were never a feature, like here it is in your face, full front
Right.
part of the
And
band.
usually
Yeah.
you don't have horn players. Like, you know, maybe it's on the record, you know what I'm saying? But
Yep.
very
Right, the
rarely do
session
people,
thing.
I mean, you
Yeah.
know, some people do, but bigger. So, you know, the fact that we were able to get these guys to travel around with us and start playing shows, and besides that, they were part of the show. You know, they saw what was going on, and they were like, this is fucking cool. So they're jumping around and dancing, and you know, it just made it bigger and better and funkier, and you know, and that's really what like changed the trajectory from us
Right.
just being a straight
Yeah.
up like rock band. I mean, you know, it at first we wanted to be Guns N' Roses just like everybody else did at that time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, I had my bootstraps and all the fucking clothes. You know, I mean, and like I said, I met Axl Rose at the Cat Club. He saw us play, and he like shook my hand, and he was like very complimentary, and it was like I was like
Wow.
pissing my pants, you know, because I was like he was like my idol at that moment. So I was like, holy
That's
shit, this is
awesome.
so fucking cool. Um, but I don't know honestly if how far we would have went if we, you know, just followed, you know, the typical path. So
Yeah.
Right.
doing that really opened up a lot of doors, and I think it brought in different people, and then we started to try to push out and say like, okay, what can we do with this beyond just being like a straight up rock band?
Yeah, well, and especially at that time, man, when you guys came out, it was 91. Then Ugly
Yeah.
Kid Joe came out, and they were kind of doing the funk metal thing.
Yep.
So there was a couple cool bands that I was like, okay. And, you know,
King
I
of
was
Hill.
always looking
Yeah.
for, you know, it's still a hair metal fan,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term for what the music is. But I mean, it was just, and then when the scene started changing,
Yeah.
I figured, like, I thought you guys, Ugly Kid Joe, you guys were going to be the bands that kind of carry it on into the alternative scene because it was a little different. Because there was a little bit of Chili Peppers, there was a little bit of punk, there was definitely the Motown stuff in there. You could definitely get that vibe from there.
Right.
I mean, you guys had it all going for you. And I remember I was like, if I first heard Apple Pie, I was just kind of like, man, do I like this? I don't know. Do I like it? Then the more I heard it, I'm like, man, I really like this. And I remember going to get the tape. And then everything on that tape, man, just blew me away. And
thank you.
Yeah, I was like, man, they're going to be huge. They're going to be huge. And of course,
I'm not saying it because I was in the band. I think we could have been a lot bigger, but the timing was bad because we were like at the tail end of that, and grunge changed everything in a different way. But when we came out, there was a lot of blurring of the lines. I felt like, like you mentioned the alternative music. So the same clubs, in New York, right? We had L'Amour's, and you had Gun Club. And then on different nights, those would be alternative nights, and we'd still go to those clubs. I mean, you could get those girls, like, you know what I mean. But I like the music, like early Ministry and stuff like that, or Devo. I like 80s King Crimson and all this stuff. So like, you go in those clubs, and it was like cool. You'd hear different stuff, and we incorporated all that stuff. Like we weren't just listening to metal. Like when I was in high school, I was just listening to metal. But then toward the end, as we started taking it more seriously, and you start listening to music critically and appreciating different types of music, you're like, that's cool. Let's do that, and then you're trying to, So I think that time there was a lot more experimentation. I think there's a lot of experimentation still now, but it's very hard to find people doing that. Everybody looks to slot something into like a genre and like, okay, this is that, this is that, this is that. And that's kind of lame, I think, but it's because you have a really dumb, music industry right now. Like,
I think it's because of the way we consume music nowadays. I mean, if you're on Spotify, you are labeled as a whatever, right? As a funk metal band, or as a hard rock band, or a pop band, whatever, right? And they include you on lists that people kind of, they don't search. I'm not that way, right? But a lot of people are not searching for bands anymore. They're just searching for genres, right? I like hip hop, so I'm gonna search for hip hop, right? It doesn't matter who's playing. It's just something to have in the background or whatever.
Because the system is not really that smart, right? It's like, oh, you like Kick Tracy, you'll also like White Trash, and so maybe a couple of them line up, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck am I listening to, right? And then the next time you go, they keep feeding you this stuff, and it's like their algorithms are all fucked up. Yep. That's why DJs were cool. The role of the DJ and radio, that's gone. But the point is, a guy could like music and he could break a song, right? Like there's lots of stories about like Meatloaf or bands like that, where it was a DJ that said, I'm playing this. Like, I'm playing this fucking thing.
Yeah, that happened a lot in Cleveland, man.
But
I'm sure it did.
In Cleveland.
What's scary to me is that we are going towards an AI future, right? And an AI is not going to make that decision. It's just going to go with what it knows, right? It's more common. So if the algorithm says that people that like White Trash are going to like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, then that's what it says, and there's no way that the AI is gonna say, hey, maybe if they like White Trash, they're gonna like this other thing that hasn't got a lot to do with White Trash, but it's on they're from the same neighborhood and they have the same influences and whatever. It's not gonna make that decision, I don't think.
No, and sometimes the connections between things aren't so obvious and programmable that way, where an algorithm is gonna pick it out. So the point is, there's plenty of lame DJs like, hey, welcome to KBCC. That shit's garbage. But the point is, people used to go on the radio and break records and play records, or they play. You wouldn't hear the same song from the band, right? Like, I mean, if they're gonna play Alice Cooper, they're gonna play School's Out Now. You're never gonna hear any other song, like ever, right?
Exactly.
And maybe Poison. But the point is, that guy has so many cool songs, like on the first couple of albums and stuff, and it's like, nobody does a deep dive in like you know what I mean? Like that, a lot of times I got into a band not because of the popular song. A lot of times I hate the popular song and it gets in your head and you're like, ugh, I don't want to hear that anymore. Then you hear the rest of it and you're like, wow, I didn't know that. Like this shit's really cool. Like when my friend like turned me on to Prince back then, I was like, I don't, I was just like not interested. And then I think he played me the Black Album, which was at the time you could only get as a bootleg because he pulled it before. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, whoa, like what's going on here? Like I missed something here. And then you go back and you're like, oh, this is everything right here, So I just kind of, that's the problem. Like, and again, and Spotify is absolute garbage. Like I don't have it. I don't have an account. I don't use it. The first 2 albums are on Spotify because I don't control that. The 2 albums we put out after that, I pulled off of Spotify. I'm not going to put the new album on Spotify. Like there's no, I mean, if you're a new band, you kind of got to do it because you're trying to get on people's playlists and stuff like that, I guess. But what a horrible way to rip off musicians. It's ridiculous,
It's crazy.
Back then MTV would play your video and they didn't really pay you for it, but there was a tangible result from that. You know what I mean? You're on TV, and years later they did pay everybody.
So many people, and you didn't have to. I mean, pretty much everybody in America had cable. I mean, it was just almost every,
and everybody was watching MTV for music. So if they picked you, this is cool, and they put it on, and you're in rotation like we were for a little while there. There's a lot of eyes on it, a lot more than you even realize. And then, in Canada, what did they have in Canada? I think it was More Music or Much Music or something.
Much Music in Canada,
Much Music, and I know we got Play there, and there were other things like Video Jukebox, and I'm sure there was a million of these things. So once MTV starts playing something, it just starts popping up everywhere, and then it's like you go to a town and everybody's waiting for you. So there was a benefit to getting screwed over by MTV financially because they gave you something, right? But with Spotify, it's like, everybody and their mother is on Spotify. There's no hurdle to clear. You pay them and your music's on Spotify. Like big deal, like, but it's convenient. Like if you're in the car, like I understand why people use it. I personally think it's a terrible thing for musicians. It's really bad. It takes away the little revenue that you can make, you know what I mean? Especially if you're a new artist, like labels don't give you big advances and they want a piece of your merchandising. And it's like, you can't really make money. It's tough. And that's why a lot of people now, right, they're doing their farewell tours. The economics just don't work out that well anymore.
Well, and it also actively leaves the little guys out of the race, because if you're Taylor Swift, you are gonna, of course, you're gonna be on top of all the charts.
Who's that?
Right.
Because there's people actively pushing that. Even Spotify executives are pushing that because it gets them revenue, right?
Right. And the labels make money off Spotify because they're not selling a song. They're selling all of their songs. It's the whole catalog. They don't care if they're playing me or Taylor Swift. Like if I'm in that catalog and she's in that catalog, I don't know that we're in the same catalog, but I'm just saying it's just, we're just content, right? We're just like, you go into the supermarket and there's a whole shelf of canned peas. That's what it is. The way that works. Like, okay, here's a can of peas, So the label is getting a piece from all of this. And then we get, like, they give you, I forget what it is. It's like 0.017 cents for a play.
Right.
That's not, I mean, we're talking about like a fraction of a penny they're giving you. Now, look, don't pay me. Keep it. Like, I don't want it. Like, I mean, it can add up, but it's not worth it. It's not the old revenue stream. And now they're saying on Spotify that, like if you're a newer act and you don't get that many spins, that you don't get paid at all. Like you just get absorbed in like, hey, you're lucky to be on Spotify. It's like, meanwhile, you're paying to be on Spotify. You got to pay like DistroKid or something. I can't wait till that collapses. I really believe it will at some point. But look, right now it's just very convenient, like I said, to be in your car and just put on Spotify, put on a Tool song or something, and then they just pull up, some other progressive metal stuff. And, if you're cool with that, it's a free country. There's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But I just don't think it's fair to musicians
No,
personally.
I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah.
and I always try, like, with bands that I like, and whether it be older bands or newer bands or even bands that don't exist anymore, I always try to find merch. If I can go to like a band's direct website and order anything
Yeah.
off of there, that's what I do. I know they're not getting. Am I guilty of Spotify? Yes. I have it in my car. It's how I listen to all the music that I love that's still around. I could go on YouTube and search it, but that's doing the same thing. It's just it sucks. I still buy physical media, with
I do too.
vinyl and everything. But I like to go to the band's website and I will buy T-shirts, I will buy hoodies, whatever. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, if I could support a band that way, I will. Or if they come to our town, you could bet your ass that I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
For any of the bands. I mean, and it sucks
No,
that
but
you guys aren't making the money off the music anymore.
yeah. I mean,
But
but it's what you said. You have to kind of take matters into your own hand. Adrian Belew, who played with Zappa and Bowie and King Crimson, and uh,
mm,
he's one of my favorite musicians. He releases all his own stuff. Like he records it in his house. He plays every instrument on it, sings.
Hmm.
Does everything
mm,
himself. He has engineers and stuff, but the studio's in his house, and then he releases it the same way like we do stuff through Bandcamp, right? He doesn't put it on Spotify, and I've heard him talk, and I just agree with that. It's like, I mean, again, you kind of have to be in a situation where you already have some kind of audience. Like, look, so for me, I don't have this. He's got a much bigger audience than I do, but we have an audience from back then, luckily, that has stuck with us, over the years. So if you have an
mhm,
audience, you can kind of take matters into your own hands. It's a lot of work, but it's hard if you're a new band and you just set up a Bandcamp page. Like, how does anybody even know you're there, right? Like your
Right.
friends know you're there. So it's
mhm,
tough. It's really tough for musicians, and it's a crazy world, and there's a lot of terrible things happening. There's a lot of great things happening, but the point is, music is important. Art is important. That's for us. That's nourishes our soul. Like and if you can't
Yeah.
make and get new ideas out there and like new music, new movies, paintings, like we all suffer. You know what I mean? So these
Yeah.
corporate entities like Spotify, I mean, I'm not a hippie. I'm not against capitalism. People have a right to make money and as much money as they want to make, and they don't have to share it with anybody. But I don't like the idea that like you can take people's work and like go through the record label and just steal people's work and just profit off of it and then not share anything back with the band. Oh, here's
Yeah. Yeah.
here's 37 cents for 1,000 spins or whatever. I mean, that's bullshit.
Yeah, and there's also a very, so new bands have a very close ceiling because yeah, you can get famous locally and maybe state wise, but you're never gonna get signed to Universal, or you're gonna be, or maybe you will, but you're not gonna get a promotion like you maybe you could back in the day, right?
And again, if you want to get signed, you want to play gigs, right? What are people looking at? Okay, how many followers you got on Facebook, YouTube
Right.
hits? Like people are looking for data that says, oh, this can't miss, or at least it's not going to be a disaster, right? They want to see
mhm,
that, okay, this girl who's singing, and we all know nobody's listening to her sing. She's got big tits and she's singing, right? It's like the Instagram model. And the point is, but hey, she's got like close to 1 million people following what she's doing and they're active on her
mhm.
account. Let her put a record out. We'll pay for it. And we'll keep the money and we'll market her. Again, a girl with big tits can be, talented. So
Right.
it might work out for everybody. Oh, she's beautiful. She's talented. But I don't see a lot of that, but I'm just saying technically it's possible. So, all social media, all this stuff, again, I'm not against progress and I'm not the old guy saying get off my lawn. But I think as you enter into this new digital age, there's a lot of, it's like, the last century, you had TV and movie. There's a lot of things, we put in safeguards, right, to protect against yellow journalism and monopolies and things like that. Not just for like righteous reasons, but because society just works better. Capitalism, you need to be able to bring new ideas to the marketplace, right? The idea of building a better mousetrap is what capitalism is supposed to be about, not just corporations buying everything up and killing the competition. And that's kind of what happens with a musician, is that the labels they're not really looking for new acts. They're just like selling people's catalogs and looking for people, on big social media followings and stuff. So you don't have good live music. You know what I mean? Some people, you hear a record and it sounds good and you go see him play, but then you realize this guy's not really a pro musician, like he doesn't get it because he didn't spend 5 years in the clubs. You know what I mean? And it's not the same thing. It just isn't the same thing. But again, if younger people are into it, then, God bless everybody. I'm just an out of touch moron, on a podcast. But, hey, you have me on, so I figure I'll just speak my mind.
No, and
Well, that's what we were talking about, those tangents. So you fell right into it. It was beautiful.
I heard what you said.
So speaking about a crappy and scary future, have you heard that Motley Crue has a new song and an album announced?
No, I was a big Motley Crue fan growing up. I see, that's another thing I kind of think is getting old. Like, if you're telling me it's your last tour, stop playing already. Like, I mean, I have nothing against Motley Crue, and I'm probably one of the few people that still likes Vince Neil, because everybody busts on him so bad. But I growing up, he was like one of my idols, so I'm always gonna love Vince. But
and he laid the groundwork for a lot of this stuff, man.
Yeah, I have that high voice. I copied him. We have demo tapes of us, White Trash, doing Motley Crue songs, and we sounded exactly like Motley Crue. That's where we started. We wanted to be like Motley Crue, then we wanted to be like Guns N' Roses, and then finally we got our shit together. But I went to what I thought was one of their last tours, and that was, I don't know, was that 10 years ago? I don't know, like, why con the fans? Like, you know what I mean? Just keep playing if you want to play. Don't con us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So a new album, and plus they threw Mick out, right? They threw Mick Mars out of the band. That doesn't seem cool, but I don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
I mean, there's always been crap thrown around in the Motley Crue camp, right? It's always been like that, but between them and them and the fans and whatever. But back then they were young, talented, and I don't know, right?
What's
Nowadays
crazy is
it's just I don't know, watched out.
Well, they changed, at that time, and they changed everything, because when you saw them with the look and everything, it was like, there were just those bands that maybe they just came out at the right time, whatever. Because, look, I'm well aware other people wore makeup and leather and, but they just seized it, and really, like, made it happen, And I know me and my friends, that was like, when we bought Shout at the Devil, and you open up the vinyl and like, they're there with fire and like, it's like the Road Warrior or something,
They have pentagram and,
like, this is cool. I am not going to school anymore. I am going to be a rock star. Fuck everything else.
And that's exactly what worries me about the new album or new song, whatever. I mean,
well, you are aware before you go into your thing that they're signed to a country label.
Well, yes, I heard the rumors that it's gonna be some kind
they're
of
signed
country.
to the same label that put out
the
Motley Crue tribute album, where all the country artists recorded Motley Crue tunes. So
interesting.
I don't know.
Are they going to get played on country radio? Probably not.
I don't see them releasing a country album. I hope not, but
no, I don't.
Well,
see
Beyonce did.
But the problem is that they keep missing who their target audience is. I mean, people just want a new Dr. Feelgood, a new Shout at the Devil. They don't want. They seem to be stuck like in 2008, like with all the 6 a.m. like emo crap, and and I don't know. It's just. I mean, John 5 is definitely he has that guitar tone, so it's gonna be something that sounds like 6 a.m. right or whatever. But I don't know. It just seemed like I saw them. I saw them on the stadium tour last year, and I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of sad. I mean, Def Leppard played circles around them, and they are older than them. right.
Yeah. I
uh,
think a lot of these bands, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just saying. I think a lot of these bands really like aren't that into what they do. But it's if you're Motley Crue, if you're Metallica, you're making so much money doing this. Rolling Stones, right? You make so much money that, like, I mean, to me, I think I'm the kind of guy. I'm just far too lazy. I'd be like, yeah, I made I made a couple $1 million. I'm done. But I think when you're that big, there's like you employ people, right? And you've got ex-wives and kids, and you know, there's no
yeah,
such thing as enough money, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the point is, I think there's, it's like you ever watch Metalocalypse, the
Oh yeah,
cartoon,
yeah, yeah.
but they're
Yep.
like in the show, they're like the fifth largest piece of the world economy, like so it's very important to keep that band going, right? But in some ways that's true. These stadium tours and stuff, there's a lot of money, like that's generated for a lot of different people, not just the band, like merch, uh you know
yeah.
road
They become
crews.
enterprises. Yeah,
Yeah.
So they really are like a corporation. So I
right.
guess if you're on at that level, which I've never been on that level, like there's powers to be that be within you and around you, that it's like kind of hard to just say I'm not doing this anymore. It's probably real easy for us to sit here and say, oh, we'll give
Yeah,
it a rest, but I just kind of feel like, if you don't really have fresh ideas or anything, there's always the fun if you liked somebody and you go see them, you know what I mean? And you don't necessarily have to hear new stuff if you go see Motley Crue, right? Like, because you're going to hear Shout at the Devil and all that
of
stuff, right?
course.
Like, so
Yeah,
if they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
came out and played all new material, it might be good, but you'd kind of be a little disappointed, right? Because that's why you went. And I think a lot of these big bands, you know, they know what they're supposed to be selling, right? Like maybe they have a couple of new songs, they're barely going to play them because they're like, yeah,
Mhm.
nobody, really wants
nobody
to hear
cares. Yeah,
this. But to me, musically, that's kind of, I don't know. I can't imagine that's very fulfilling. So I think it's really just the reality is it's big business and it makes a lot of money. And they're not going to
Yeah.
close McDonald's anytime soon. They're not, you know what I mean? Spotify's not going to go, yeah, what we're doing is unethical. We're going to shut down. It's just too much money. So,
I mean, it's a job. At that point, it's a job. I mean, I go to my 9 to 5 and fill out Excel sheets. They go out and play for a couple of thousand people. Yeah, it's a job for them. But and I get it.
yeah,
I agree with
Yeah.
what you say. I mean, it's job and it pays the bills. It buys them a new mansion every year, and that's totally fine. I mean,
right.
it is what why they started it. I get, well, not why they started it, but why they keep doing it at least.
Yeah.
And
And that's what I think. I think most of these guys don't really enjoy it that much. It's not the same energy,
Yeah.
um, like when I saw Motley Crue the last time I saw them, and this is not to put anybody down. I'm watching the show. I was like, yeah, it was a good, it was a legit, show. Tommy
Mhm.
Lee, on his crazy
yeah,
drum set stuff, and the pyrotechnics and everything. And what I realized, I kind of looked around. It was at Nassau Coliseum out here, and everybody's kind of just sitting down, and we're all old. The crowd doesn't have the same energy either. You know what I mean? So
right.
it
No.
really is
No.
just nostalgia, and we all, like are interested in nostalgia. There's all things we look back on and remember. So that's
Mhm.
really what it's about. It's nostalgia. But to me, what's lacking is new music, new interesting music. It's out there. Every people hit me to stuff. I'm always looking for new stuff because, like, I absorb it, and then I'm like, I want more. I want more good, interesting music that I've never heard before. But it's
Yeah.
hard to find now. That's the problem. It's just very hard to find. So, and when you find it, like you said before, I buy CDs. And people go, "What are you buying CDs for?" Because that's the only way any money's getting in the band's pocket. And I also believe, everybody's too comfortable having all of their music library being hosted for them. What happens if they yank that from you? Some of the stuff's out of print and stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go try to
Yeah.
find some of our stuff. You can't, right? So the point is,
Yeah, very rare.
I
Yeah.
I I keep my CDs. I went to a point. I remember, you know, 20 years or so when iPods were big and everything. They had services where you could like send your CD and they would digitize it all and put it on an iPod for you, and then they would like sell the CDs or something. But I was like, yeah, but that proves right there that they have some value. Somebody's not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They, you know what I mean? And then what I heard was like in Europe, a lot of people were still holding on to CDs so they could like, resell them on the used market or something. But I'm keeping my CDs. I got my DVDs, takes up a lot of room, but you basically have a master of your favorite music. You have a very high quality. I mean, CDs are not perfect, they're not the best, but my point is you can always put the CD in, put it in iTunes or whatever you use, you know what I mean? And if your computer craps out or whatever, you still have the CD. So
that's funny you saying it. That just happened to me the other day. I have some movies on my Amazon Prime that I purchased, and I go to watch Conan the Destroyer because I love Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah.
I go to watch it. It's like it's not playing. Amazon has this note. I call Amazon up. They're saying, "Oh yeah, that's currently unavailable." I'm like, "How can it be currently unavailable? I paid for it. I bought the movie."
Yeah,
I know.
Just within the state of Ohio, it's unavailable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, now I can't watch Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah.
Fucked up my night.
No, that happened with my son. I can't remember what he was trying to watch, like on Amazon Prime. I hate Amazon Prime because it's like you pay a fee and then it's like, they have some free titles, but like that's not really what you're looking for most of the time. And then like you could search almost any movie, like, oh, we have it. It's $15. It's like, but wait, I'm already paying you. So like, what I'm paying for the privilege of buying it from you. And then the kick in the ass is what you just said. Then you can just take it back and say, oh yeah, we don't have the right to distribute it anymore. So then how do you sell it to me?
Problem. When you pay for streaming, you're just paying for a license to access what they offer. But if they stop offering it, and they can do it anytime they want because, I don't know, their contract with the label or with whoever just ran out, you're screwed. I mean, you don't own it. You just own the license to listen to it if it's available. And that sucks. I mean, I also collect and purchase physical media all the time for that same reason. I mean, there's stuff that, first of all, the stuff that's never been on streaming, so you just can't find it. And then there's stuff that's it isn't streaming, and it may stop being there at any time. So if I wanted to listen to it, then it's an extra step, just find an alternative or whatever. So if I have it on physical media, and I also like the ritual of just get on the record on the turntable or the CD on the CD player or whatever. I mean, it's nice, and it has a sense of occasion to the whole thing, right? It's not like on Spotify you only listen to singles, right? Or you're cherry picking like what you're gonna listen to, and
and you don't really know like who played on the track, right? Like, so if there's a guest, like we had we had Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic play on the second record. And if you had the CD, you could look at that and say, Bernie Worrell on the 21 Club, right? But if you listen to it on Spotify, you don't know that. No. I mean, I guess you could look, but my point is, that was the whole thing. You buy a record. First of all, the artwork. You'd see the artwork, and that could draw you in. But then you open the record, and if it folded out, and then you have the sleeve, and you got the lyrics, and you got, who wrote what and everything. Like, you knew all that stuff. Now it's like, I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's the third song on the CD. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're not really looking at all this stuff. And like Spotify is like I said, it doesn't matter. It's another can of peas. Here, take this one, So, and if you pay for Spotify, just like you said, I mean, there was that thing where like Neil Young took his music down, right? So if you lost that, if you were listening to that, right? So now we put it back. But the point is, you don't own it. You can't depend that it's going to be there. And despite what everybody tells you, there's a lot of music that's not on there, like a lot, and I'm always listening to crazy stuff. So like, I remember like going through Spotify, like looking at it, and I'm like, they don't have that. They don't have that. So I was like, this is not for me. Like, I don't need to hear Taylor Swift do 8,000 versions of the same song. It's like, if that's what you're all about, they got your algorithm perfectly. You get Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, you're living it up there if you're a teeny bopper. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. Serious musicians, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there. I know plenty of people and musicians that I respect and that they like Spotify and enjoy it. So I'm not telling anybody what to do. I just think it's a little suspect how that
Absolutely.
works. Like the wrong people are getting the money. If it went to the artist, you know what I mean? Then that would be a beautiful thing. But that's
Yeah.
not how the music industry works. That's not how it ever worked, really. But
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and before we, so it's been an hour, but before we start wrapping up the episode, I want to go back a little bit. Yeah, you at the very beginning, you were talking about how there was this little scene of bands in New York that played uh, a more funky, more like brassy style of music, and so that to me that contrasts a lot with the type of bands that normally came out of New York, like Skid Row or Spread Eagle, more greedy, like darker. But yes, you guys had the edge, but were fun as well with brass and all the lyrics and whatever, right?
yeah.
So what?
So we. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that was that a conscious decision to like differentiate yourselves from the general music
Well,
scene in New York City?
yeah. So I really enjoyed the scene in New York City, but there's always the thing in New York City. Like if you're from Queens, people in the city think you're a hillbilly, right? Like, oh, he's not really a New Yorker, you know. Whatever. I'm not going to debate that with anybody. But the point is, so that's really where the name White Trash came for, because it's like that's like we felt like they looked at us like dumb hillbillies when we went in the city. So we, had a chip on our shoulder. We went in, like it didn't matter whoever we were playing with. It's like we're bringing it. We're blowing you away. It's like you suck. We're it's on. Like this is a fight. We're taking over. So like all these guys were much cooler than us. They dressed better than us and everything, and so like we would just storm onto the scene. And that's what I'm saying. We were smashing TVs and throwing birthday cakes at people. And like, we just were like, look at us. Look at us. We're here. We're not cool, but we're here. And, we became known as like a party band. New York wasn't really about party bands. It was cool. You start with going back to like the New York Dolls and stuff like that. And,
A Warrior Soul.
the Warrior
Very,
Soul, yeah,
very
Corey is
non-party.
cool, and so we were like not really part of that. Nobody really thought we were that cool. You know what I mean? Like they kind of thought we were fools, right? So we were like, but we're better musicians than these guys, and we really worked on the stage show. New York was very cool. Like is my point. It was like, but it was like down tempo, like kind of like people were too cool for school. Like they would just kind of hang on the mic stand, and we were just flying around and breaking stuff like monkeys. You know what I mean? So it was a conscious thing because I don't think anybody would have paid attention to us if we just came in and tried to do what everybody else was doing. So we stole a lot of ideas, but I always like band like the Plasmatics and, I like the punk sensibility, even though I'm not a real punk rocker, you know what I mean? So like, we were like, hey man, we can do this better than you can. We're like, we're legit. We're, we're not trying to be cool. We're out of our fucking mind. Like, you know what I mean? So we just brought it and instead of trying to fit in, we just tried to stand out. You know what I mean? Like, what doesn't fit here? Those guys, they shouldn't be here. But
Yeah, and you guys did stand out.
yeah,
You guys
that was our
definitely stood out.
point. Like, why be like everyone else? It's boring. Who wants to
And
be like everyone else?
even on MTV. I mean, like I said, it took me a couple listens to like say, okay, wait a second, there's something here. But and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I mean, it was just that's how different you guys were from the norm, and
Yeah.
I just think that it brought something different. It brought a almost like a breath of fresh air to a
Thank
scene
you.
that was kind of becoming a little bit stale at that time. And
No, thanks.
but you guys were still kind of in that vein, just with a little bit of difference. It wasn't like Nirvana where it was just completely different.
No, and that's where everything, changed, and it's not a better or worse. That changed, and that affected us and a lot of bands from that scene because then we were, oh, that shit's old, you know. And again, we weren't really 100% part of that scene, but we were kind of lumped in with it. But honestly, I don't blame it on grunge or anything. You know, the reality is, we made the first album. It was a big hit for us, and the truth is, you know, Ethan, who was the guitar player, really didn't like playing with horn players or playing funk music. You know, he was a really, really exceptional guitar player, and he wanted to do something more like a, you know, like Jakey Lee Badlands kind of project. So, you know, he exited. His brother is the bass player. You know, they were into kind of doing Chili Peppers kind of stuff, so they didn't want to stay in the band. And so that's why, you know, the second record we had all new people, but like a lot of these people were like, you know, like Ethan and Craig, the second guitar player, they were roommates, they were friends. You know, we all lived around the corner from me. The funny thing is like, I lived here, Ethan and Aaron lived across the street. The original drummer from White Trash, Andy Lang, lived around the corner. Craig, who was the second guitar player, lived like over that way. You know what I mean? So we didn't really go. I mean, it's a different band, but it was the same crew of people. Like we all
new kids on the block, you could say.
Yeah, but we all had the same like interests in music and film and stuff like that. So it wasn't like we went out and put out an ad like looking for a bitchin' new guitar player. Like, you know, we were just like, you know, and when that happened, you know, I had the blessing of the other guys, because they were just like, well, you know, this is really not like our kind of project, I guess, is what the point was. You know, I'm a lifer, you know, I'm White Trash. I'm in, you know, I'm going down with the ship, like, you know, for better for worse. I don't really care, because it's such a big part of my life, and I so many good things happen, you know, from it. And it was such a special experience. You know, I keep it going as much as I can, you know, and occasionally I get some of the original guys back in the band. And, you know, like right now, we're not really playing out so much, but we might be. But, you know, focusing on releasing like, you know, stuff that we have in the archives. And there's a lot of stuff in there to put out. So, like, I'm keeping it going.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah, it's good. It'll be out next month. The second album was called COCK, like was written in Spanish, but you know what that spells, obviously, if you figure out the joke there.
Yeah.
So the album that we're putting out next month is called Cock in a Box. So it's like a, you know, a little collection of all the stuff that was left off the Cock album. So so there's a lot of cool stuff. Like we do a cover of Snowblind from Black Sabbath, and Janis Joplin's song "Move Over," if you're familiar with that song.
Do you have any of the Motley demos on there?
The what?
Will any of the Motley demos show up on anything?
No, not on that. But this is so it's been 30 years since that album came out. So I wanted to do something, you know, to honor that, you know, and so it's like the 30-year anniversary of COCK. So we're doing this little collection. But I'm looking at doing this like for the other albums and re-releasing some stuff. And like I said, we started recording a new album like around the Monsters of Rock cruise time and everything. So I'm going to finish that. You know, so there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. And the point is, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm not dead yet. I'm not going away.
Well, good.
Good to hear.
Because I'm definitely looking forward to all the White Trash you can throw at me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's a few other things maybe going on, you know, that aren't flushed out yet, but, you know, hopefully we can get back out on the road and do a few, you know, choice gigs and stuff. But
well, if I could plan a road trip, man, I'll take an 8-hour drive and catch a show in New York if you guys do that.
I had this great idea. Never really did it. My point was like, just go on tour. Like, forget the venues. Like, just go to fans' houses. Like, hey, we just show up with an acoustic guitar. Give us a 6-pack of beer. We'll sit on your couch. What songs you want us to play? Let us sleep there. We'll get in the car and we'll leave the next day and go to the next house.
Rhode Island, Ohio. I'm not far from Cleveland. Come on over.
Well, if I ever get my ass out of my chair, then I'll make sure to pencil you in.
I'll have the camera ready. We'll put out a video for it. It'll be sweet.
Well, that was my whole thing. I was like, that would be such a great movie. Like, just like some old washed up rock star just going around like, and then, I come to your house and you couldn't get me out of the house and I'm like raiding your refrigerator, like, yo, you don't have any fucking thing to eat here, and I'm drinking your booze. But no, I'm
Hey,
Like
let's
an
write
H50.
it. Let's write it.
Well, if you ever feel like coming to South America, I'm in Argentina, so
Yes.
you're always welcome.
Same thing.
That'll be the sequel.
That'll be the sequel, yeah.
Up to Argentina.
Yes.
White trash takes the world. Yeah. White trash too.
Hey, they
White
call
trash
me
takes
white
the-
trash.
Might be onto something there, Dave. You might be onto something.
Lots of ideas up here. The world is lucky we didn't make it. It would be a much different world right now. I could tell
And
you
you
that.
still have your hair, man. Kudos to you.
I
for
do,
that.
and it's real hair. Just so you know,
Mine was gone a long time ago.
a lot of gray in there, but
Hey, that's all
maybe I
right.
could get it
All right.
white, and it'll be like I'll be back to being Vince Neil. I'll just have like white long hair, like on Shout at the Devil, like Vince's hair.
You
They'll
sound
get
like
the
you still have the
bangs.
voice, though, so that's good.
Yeah, I can still sing. Luckily, it is hard being a rock singer.
Oh,
Very, very
yeah.
rough on the throat, and I know a lot of people. I've been fortunate so far, but you got to be careful with your throat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Dave, to wrap it up, tell us your 5 or whatever number you want Desert Island albums.
How many?
Either 5, 10, whatever you want.
Well, I said before, Prince the Black album's got to be on there because that. I mean, I'll pick like albums that kind of changed my life a little bit. That was one. What else? Like Shout at the Devil changed my life. I'm not. This is not a list of the best albums ever. I'm just picking albums that really impacted me.
Oh, yeah.
Appetite for Destruction, Aerosmith live bootleg, King Crimson, Discipline. Who else do I like? I'm trying to think.
So much.
Well, I used to
out
like comedy records. I'm gonna throw. I had the very best of Richard Pryor, and I had
there. Oh, Eddie Murphy, the
like a
comedian.
Bob Newhart album. Oh, and I'm sorry, I left out the most important album, which is Jimi Hendrix Access Bold as Love. That was my first album, even though the most famous was Are You Experienced. I got Access Bold as Love on cassette, and that's when I got into music. Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. Those were all like big albums, and the Blues Brothers album.
Of course.
That's another big influence.
Yeah. So White Trash is somewhere between the Blues Brothers and Iron Maiden.
Yes, exactly. That's what we
Right in
aspired to. If only the world understood, we would have been much bigger.
Awesome. Okay, so Dave, thank you very much for being on the show. I mean, we had a great time. It's been so much fun.
All right, great talking to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
man.
And we look forward to hearing the new stuff and the demos and all this stuff you're releasing. So as soon as it's out there, just let us know and we'll promote it.
It'll be on Facebook. That's like our main promotion tool.
Okay.
Even though Facebook's Facebook, it does work well for communicating with
Means to an
fans
end. Yeah.
promoting. So
Yeah, absolutely. We'll promote the shit out of it. Don't worry.
all right, thank you.
And I
appreciate
will be more than happy to buy some White Trash merch for sure.
Yes, T-shirts
So-
are going to cost $75. I got bills to pay. Nah,
Okay, let me.
I'm kidding. I'm looking
We'll
actually
keep
the price
overtime. We'll
low.
get that.
You can catch them on the farewell tour.
We take
Yeah.
Bitcoin. We take Bitcoin. That's how I'm
Oh, okay,
going
we're
into
good
the
then.
future.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Take
Okay,
care.
thanks,
and,
guys.
And thank you.
Cool, man.
Again.
Later, bro.
Later,
Take care.
man.